Okay, so just got through watching Jamie McDonnell versus Fernando Vargas for McDonnell's WBA regular bantamweight title. It's 118 pounds. Of course, Fernando Vargas was a late replacement for Rosas. Rosas was originally supposed to be the guy that McDonnell was fighting. He wound up pulling out. Vargas filled in on about 5 days' notice. But Vargas, in spite of the fact that he was a late replacement, is a pretty good fighter. I mean, his last win was against Wilfredo Vasquez Jr. He came in here and he was looking fairly lively in spite of the fact that he came in on late notice and managed to make weight after kind of somewhat struggling because of the fact that it was on late notice. But I mean, he was in generally in training, so he came in fairly good shape. McDonnell, of course, for the most part, dominated the fight. He just better skill set, used his height and reach to control the distance. He pretty much ground Vargas down. He hurt him pretty badly in the third round. Looked like he might be able to get him out of there early, but Vargas is a tough, rugged fighter, and he managed to strike back and land a few good counters on McDonnell as McDonnell was trying to get inside on him. Funny enough, McDonnell trying to get inside on him in spite of the fact that he had about a 4.5 inch height advantage. So McDonnell eventually just kind of wore him down, took his time. Vargas landed his clean shots here and there, but McDonnell wore him down, finally stopped him in the ninth round, pretty much at the end of the round. And that's pretty much all there was to it. Jamie McDonnell, for his record after the fight, basically said that he'd be willing, and him and Eddie Hearn essentially said that they'd be willing to fight Juan Carlos Payano for the WBA super title. Either that or possibly fighting Lee Haskins. Of course, next week, or I think it's next week or in 2 weeks, Rodrigo Guerrero versus Stuart Hall is going to be the final eliminator for to decide the mandatory for Lee Haskins' IBF belt. Also out there possibly would be Zolani Tete, who's a newcomer to British boxing essentially. You know, after his thrilling knockout victory over Paul Butler in his more recent victory a few weeks back. So I mean, any of those fights would be good. They also even hinted at possibly moving up to fight somebody like Scott Quigg, of course. You know, the promotional connection there. And I mean, all those are possible. All those are good fights. Be any of those would be interesting. McDonnell, of course, was coming off two great wins over Tomoki Kameda. This was a bit of a step down, but I mean, he showed his class, and even in spite of the fact that it was a step down, he didn't necessarily fight to the level of his opponent. He controlled the action for the most part. He did well, and it'll be interesting to see how he progresses from here on out. Any of those fights would be really good. Payano is an excellent fight. I think probably the toughest fight of all those that they mentioned. And then a couple other good fights would be somebody like Rashid Warren. I think would be an excellent fight. And then there's always Ensomo Moreno out there, although he's a guy that a lot of guys aren't necessarily anxious to fight. But I'd love to see him in there against any of the top guys, including McDonnell. So props to Jamie McDonnell defending his title once again, and off to watch the next fight.